So I want to make sure that I get a nice little sampling. I try to look at, the variety of spell levels, not just focus on the best spells at the top of the list or the best spells at the beginning, but I try to have a little bit of spread. I'm Nerdarchist Ted.
And I'm Nerdarchist Dave. Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds.
All right, looks like we're going to be back at it again. We got some top 5 spell lists for School of Magic. Which one are we looking at today?
All right, so we're going to do our top 5 spell list by the Schools of Magic, like you said, times 2. You're going to do 5 spells. I'm going to do 5 spells. So I don't know that yours are in any particular order. Mine aren't, but there's spells that I like, and I kind of pick my spells based off of ones that I've used in the past and I like to take as a player.
Sure. I tend to go for spells that I either really like myself or things that have had a greater impact on the games that I've been in. Yeah. So there's definitely some spells that are like, ooh, that's nice. So I want to make sure that I get a nice little sampling. I try to look at, the variety of spell levels, not just focus on the best spells at the top of the list or the best spells at the beginning, but I try to have a little bit of spread.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And also we're looking at wizard spells specifically.
Right. So first up, let's get into it. We're going to be talking about Conjuration, and I have seen not only in my own personal games, in my own personal as me as a player, but in my games, the spell Find Familiar has to be, one of the most used of Conjuration and the most useful in a variety of different ways. I've seen familiars, try to do, sneaky stuff. I've tried to see them do, interaction type stuff. They cross kind of all the pillars of the game because that you can deliver a touch spell through your familiar, so they can kind of get even into combat.
And only the wizard gets access to Find Familiar. Currently, you can get it as a warlock if you take Pack of the Chains, but other than that, I believe the only thing that gives you access is being a wizard.
Yeah, and you can always go Magic Initiate or Ritualist, which is going to give you access to it as well. So there's definitely ways to easily acquire it, even as low as first level. So Find Familiar is definitely one of those, big punchy spells that covers all pillars of the game.
So what you got next?
All right, so next up, I'm going to look at Magnificent Mansion, or the Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion, however you want to play at it. But this spell I've seen every time somebody casts it, the DM always stops and is like, well, what does your mansion look like? How does this work? So I've used it I've not used it, but I've seen others use it in games that I've in. We've actually had 2 different wizards, casting it. I've seen it, used in Critical Role. It is a blast. It is a lot of fun, and it is so useful in a lot of different ways.
If you have enough wizards, you can just create a whole neighborhood of Magnificent Mansions. It's a great spell. I don't think it's a spell that I've ever cast, but I've definitely have seen other players cast it. The Mad Mage in Ravenloft, when you encounter them, they have a Magnificent Mansion that's permanent, I believe. It's definitely cool, and it's definitely a place that you can explore, and the player kind of gets some agency in what that place looks like.
And I've had it where it's like, this wizard casts it, so everything is stylized as that wizard would prefer. And they've gone so far as I make an entire room or a section, that's dedicated to each of the individual people in the party. So it's what kind of things would my character think of or know that your character likes? So that's what's there. It's stylized. So the dwarf gets something special and the elf gets something special, and it's literally up to the imagination of, the player, which to me, I adore anything that kind of gives the player agency in that regards. All right, so the next one I decided, it hasn't had a huge amount of impact in my personal games. It has a huge impact across the D&D verse. So I didn't want to leave this list without Wish.
It is the most powerful spell in the game. It allows you to emulate any spell in the game, and I believe any spell up to 8th level without any consequences or risk to it. You don't need the material components. You just cast Wish, boom, that spell effect happens. You can You could technically emulate other 9th level spells, but that would definitely fall into the category of there's a 30% chance you never are able to cast Wish again. But you can also just do other things. Again, you have that 30% chance of never being able to cast Wish again. But depending on what's going on and what you need, it might just be worth it. You get access to 9th level spells around 16th level, 17th level, and you're gonna get to use it for a little while, and it can definitely alter the effects of a game. I've seen a player use it in one of my games, and to some great effect as well.
Yeah, so it's definitely one of those things that when somebody starts talking about Wish, like. There's the suck in of the breath or that momentary silence. So whether it be like a wish through a magic item or a wish through, the actual casting of the spell, it always has the impact of something potentially great about to happen. So I felt Wish had to be on that list. So the next up is going to be Tensor's Floating Disc, and whether you're trying to give someone a ride, try to encourage, it to move on its own, because I've seen some DMs allow that, the wizard rides it and they just kind of float. I know that's not how it's written. Or whether it's hauling goods back from a dungeon, Tensor's Floating Disc is a nice, great low-level spell. It's a ritual spell, and it helps you do a lot of different things, whether you're trying to, jump across something, like a chasm. You can just be like, look, I'm going to put this here, and then I'm just going to jump. And then you won't need to actually make a check, right?
It's like a magical lily pad. You definitely seen those uses. Use it for hauling stuff. If something heavy needs to be moved. Comes in great for all of those things. Would you allow a player to ride it if they had something that could push it around?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fairly, liberal when it comes to, how spells are designed. So, technically it's supposed to be, it follows the wizard. Yeah. But I have no problem with, some of those cool martial art, animes where, they sit on the disc and it just rides. I don't have a problem if it's doing that of, you just want locomotion. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and I guess there are some areas where you're like, okay, this is kind of getting over, I guess, technically it only hovers a certain amount over the ground. So it's not like you're going to be able to use it to ride across the chasm.
Correct.
Because technically once you go over, it would go down.
Yes, you'd still fall. Yeah. So it's not going to help you,
So the question is, though, it goes over the chasm, it falls to the bottom, but technically it should stop before it hits the ground because that's how the spell kind of works.
So you're going to fall all but the last couple of feet.
Oh, so you're going to say you don't fall with it, you're saying?
You'll fall with it, and you'll impact into the disc.
Yeah.
So you'd still fall.
Trying to think if that's how that would really work or not. I don't know, but again, you're the DM. You can do it however you want.
That would be my ruling. You fall all but the last couple of feet as you impact into the disc. The disc then hovers, and it's.
I would definitely require an acrobatics or an athletics check to stay on the disc.
Sure,
for sure. I don't know. Let us know how you do it in your game.
We're not here to roll on that particular thing. All right, so my last and final is going to be Flaming Sphere, and this is one that I like because of the impact of it. You get to put it on the board as your action, and then on your bonus action, you get to attack with it. So you can really get some extra ongoing damage. With the use of this particular spell.
It's a rolling ball of napalm is how I kind of envision it. And, you could also use it in other ways. I feel like, it's going to set things on fire. You could, it could change the dynamics of the battlefield. It's a fun spell. I've definitely used that quite a few times over the years.
Indeed.
All right, so my list.
So what are you looking at?
First one, got to do it because this was one of my favorite spells. When it first came out, and I used it a lot with my Uthengar character. Oh, yeah. And that is Steel Wind Strike. It allows you to make up to 5 attacks where you just teleport around the battlefield and do 6 die 10 points of force damage. And I have definitely action surged to do it twice in a row. And oh my god, it is just so much damage. Yeah. Under the right circumstances.
Yeah, I really, enjoyed your using this spell, and I believe it had kind of just came out when you were playing Uthengard at those levels. So it was like, oh, this is fun. More recently, and I didn't want to put it on my list because I know like how much you loved it, so I wanted you to kind of give like the intro here. But in one of my most recent games where we're playing, there are 2 wizards in the party. So we had somebody upcast Hold Person, and then somebody used Steel Wind Strike, and followed it up. So like between them and their Simulacrum, casting this spell where multiple of them were held, which meant all attacks were automatically criticals, it did an obnoxious amount of damage. So most of the attacks that wound up hitting were crits, even on the ones that weren't.
If you can figure out a way to get advantage on any of those rolls, and like I said, like being able to do it twice in a row, so making 10 attacks. Now the only caveat is you need at least 5 opponents to
maximize it.
To maximize it, because you can't just keep hitting the same opponents.
Right.
But it's fun.
It's a great spell, and like I said,
very anime feel, very thematic. I was playing a Gish, so even though it's technically force damage, I just flavor it as my axe.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah. So highly recommend that particular combination: Hold Person, Steel Wind Strike, if you can manage to make it happen.
Yeah. So here's a spell that I pretty much always take. And that is Mage Hand. It's a cantrip. You do it all the time. And it's just like, sometimes, you want that thing over all the way over there, and you don't want to get up. And you're just like, Mage Hand.
Activating a switch, pushing on pressure plates, searching, something dangerous. Mage Hand is, worst thing that happens is, the spell dissolves, and you just recast it.
I mean, you can do all that, but, come on, getting a drink from the bar without having to get up, now that is amazing. That is real magic.
All right, well, I'm not going to argue that point. What do you got next?
Misty Step. Misty Step is one of the most used spells in the game. In my opinion, it's a bonus action, so it is awesome for getting from here to over there. You can only go 30 feet, but if you need to go up, you can do that. If you're grappled by a monster, you cannot be grappled by a monster.
Yeah.
It's
Step,
really good.
Misty Step is really great in those regards. You can do a lot with it. So I definitely like it. I've had characters take it. Heck, my sorcerer in our Tuesday night game, he just took Faith Touched to get Misty Step. Haven't had a chance to use it yet, though I almost used it last night.
Yeah. It is a lot of fun. So next up is a spell that you already took as well, Find Familiar. I mean, it's the staple of being a wizard. You need a little buddy, a helper, all the things that you said before. I won't dwell on it. It's an awesome spell.
All right, what is your final?
My final is Dimension Door. I like getting from here to there and taking a friend with you up to 500 feet. It's not as precise as other transportation spells like Misty Step. I think you got to be able to see it. But for Dimension Door, you just got to have like over there someplace, right? And hope you don't teleport into a wall. But it is great. And oftentimes I've seen it as the DM where the players will use it. And they instead of getting themselves out of trouble, they get themselves into trouble because like me and the barbarian can be there right now. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute. But now I'm there right now. And the rest of the party is 500 feet away.
All right. So let me ask you this question. Why Dimension Door over Teleport?
Because it's a level you get to more often. It's only a 4th level spell. And I've seen it used a lot more in my games.
Yeah, I just had to throw that out there because I definitely considered putting Teleport on the list.
Yeah.
Dawnbringers is a high-level game, so we've used Teleport quite often, and it is, move the whole party. We have access to a Helm of Teleportation. So, like, it has definitely become a thing of, like, all right, we're somewhere. We might want to come back here. Can we take a thing from this spot? So, like, picking up a rock or, like, carving off, like, a piece of wood from, blah-de-blah-de-blah. So, Teleport is great, but, it is a 7th level spell versus Dimension Door much lower, so yeah.
Well, and also, like, one of the interesting things about both of our lists, in my opinion, is, like, none of us are like, I want to summon monsters to fight for me. Like, we didn't go the summoner route at all, which is a big staple for Conjuration. And, I guess when it comes to wizards, I'm just not a pet player.
I mean, I definitely understand the pet mentality, and I've played, Conjuration type, characters, but 5th edition has really changed the aspect of the school of conjuration with things like concentration. So like I can't have my elementals and my wolves and my fae and whatever else. I can't have it all at the same time. It pulls back the reins on what you have access to and what you can do. There's definitely a lot of great spells, and I like a lot of the conjure spells, but either it takes a long time to cast, it's concentration, it's both, or it doesn't last very long. So there's not a whole lot that goes, as a, winning condition with those spells. So I'm like, all right, I'm not going to put them on my list.
For me, though, if I play a druid, I always take conjure animals.
Sure.
Like, I like that as a druid, but not as a... I guess if I wanted to summon creatures, I'd be a druid and not a wizard.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. I had a druid who definitely conjured wolves. It was, a major aspect of his early levels. But, for this list, there were other spells that I just felt were a greater impact in my games.
Yeah, and also the conjure spells for a wizard, to get the cool stuff, is higher level. Where, third level for a druid, you're getting conjure animals and, especially, I love the idea of playing, a Circle of the Moondra, turn it into a dire wolf. And then, after having summoned a pack of wolves.
Yes, you're a wolf fighting along with your wolves, and who's to know which one's which?
Well, you know which one's which because I'm the giant one and they're the little ones. But, it's still thematic and cool, and everyone's got pack tactics.
That is true. So you like this video, others like it, as well as all the great content you can find over on Nerdarchy.com. Why not come check us out on Patreon and throw us some support over there?
Articles like Study Up on 5e D&D Magic, Conjuration Spells.
Another great way to help out Nerdarchy, if you're looking to do so, is to check out Nerdarchy the store and get products like a trip to the Planar Zoo. A trip to the Planar Zoo is no walk through the park when you wake up as a part of the exhibit. Oh no! Will the characters learn the truth of their captivity, or will the zookeeper's perfectly constructed habitat keep the sharpest of adventurers in the dark? Comes with a new player character race, the Zookeeper, 3 new magic items including the plushies of Thunderous Power, 8 new creatures including Mkatha and a Zookeeper NPC, as well as a humanoid exhibit adventure for 4 to 6 characters of 10th through 15th level.
Let us know what your favorite conjuration spells are. Give us your 5 best in the list down in the comments below and share it with the Nerdarchy community.
While you're down there, don't forget to do all those fun things like, share, subscribe, click on that notification bell so you don't miss a single video.
We drop videos several times a week on the channel, so come on back, but you can't wait till then. We got you covered. Check out our spell list for abjuration spells ×2.
So until next time, stay nerdy.